Hi guys, in this video I'm just going to show you how to set up the master drum rack template and just talk about it a little bit. Basically, the master rack template enables you to put a drum rack on the first track, or any track really, and then it routes the MIDI to 8 other tracks, and then on these 8 other tracks I'm going to have different instruments or devices depending on what I want. It was just an interesting approach that I was exploring. I may or may not use it for myself, but I figured other people might benefit from it. To set it up, basically we're going to have to create some MIDI loopback devices. Mac users have this built in. Hold down hit command and hit space. That'll bring up a shortcut to Spotlight search. You can type in audio MIDI setup, and it queues it up for me. I'm just going to go into audio MIDI setup. I'm going to click my window and show MIDI Studio, and then select my IAC bus. Just double click it. If it's not on, go ahead and turn it on, and then you can set up some ports. I basically click the plus or minus button to add ports. I have various ports for various things to communicate with Traktor, Resolume, and I have a loopback track that I use to do MIDI out and then MIDI in. And basically, a better description of that, what a MIDI loopback cable does is it enables me to send MIDI out of Ableton and then pull that same MIDI back into Ableton to do various items, which comes in kind of handy for some workarounds and some little tricks and things. And once it's set up, you can name it and have all of that fun stuff. You can set up the MIDI ports. Once that's set up, I'm going to go ahead and close that. And then you can go into your MIDI preferences, and you'll see it there. If you don't see it there, you might have to restart live. PC users, there is a link called LoopB. I will link that in the video and also in the description and on the device page to download the pack. Basically download that, install that, it sets it up. You might have to restart your machine, but it'll do exactly the same thing. I used to have a PC a long time ago, and I used to actually use LoopB and a few others, but I found LoopB to be the best because it has a paid service which keeps them in business so that they will maintain updates. But also they offer one channel for free, which is really handy for experimentation, and if you only need one channel. Once you have that set up, you go into your Ableton MIDI preferences, and then for the input of your loopback track, go ahead and make sure it's on for track, because we're going to take the MIDI and we're going to pull it into the track to play drum racks and instruments. That's exactly what we're going to do. It's just like you would set up any other keyboard. We do not need sync on, and we do not need remote on. Now for output, you also need to go into it and make sure it's enabled for track, so it sends it out on the track, because we're going to use the drum rack to send the MIDI out of the track and then back in. And if you set it up just like the way I have, utilizing the same names and everything, IAC bus, loopback track, and all that, you probably won't have to do anything, but you might have to go in and still do a few things. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the drum rack. This might take a little work for you to set up. It could be a learning experience. It could be fun. It could be boring. But you only have to do it one time. Again, for Mac users, if you set up an IAC bus and call it loopback track, just like I did, it's possible. I can't verify this, but it's possible that you won't have to do this extra work. PC users are probably going to have to do this extra work. All right, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go into the master rack track, on the drum rack, show the chains by clicking the one with the little lines on it. And then I have all of the 8 racks individually grouped and color-coded, so that way there'll be different colors on the push, and the 8 groups correspond to the 8 tracks that the MIDI is being sent to. And we'll start with the first one, rack 1. And then look in rack 1, and you'll see I have named, basically chain 1 through 16 to represent the 16 different pads. And then, of course, I have them color-coded. You can change the colors if you want, however you like. The key here is you got to go over here to this external instrument device, which is the magic behind everything. Make sure that the MIDI 2 is sending to your loopback channel. And then the channel is 1. And the channel should correspond with the rack. So channel 1 is for rack 1, 2, 3, 4 through 8. And you'll notice on the MIDI from channels, you actually probably won't notice because you probably have to set this up as well. So we'll stop here in a second to set that up. But all of the tracks will correspond to the same channel. And basically you're going to have to go to each chain individually and make sure that every one of them is set to MIDI loopback and channel 1. And now this may seem like a lot of work. It is, and you may wish there was an easy way to do things. But I'm going to warn you right now, this is basically a workaround. This is basically an advanced kind of trick. If you don't really feel like you need this, stop now, abort, run away, go hide, do something else, because you don't need to do this if you don't see the value in it already. So really, like seriously, if you do not see the value of it, just stop and move on, do something else. And if you don't understand the value of it, just to kind of clarify, what this is really enabling me to do is each one of these tracks, I can have an instrument. Now, the nice thing about it is what it's tricky to do is I can put an instrument, an operator, a sampler, a third-party VST, and then it'll work much like a synth so that I can do my envelopes and my glide and everything works really well. And it's pretty much one of the only ways you can do that. The other thing is I can have different drum racks. I can swap them out. There's advanced tricks where I'm going to use like dummy clips to kind of change presets and things like that. You know, there's a lot of neat things, neat little tricks that can be done for a live performance, and this is very live performance oriented. I should clarify that in the beginning, and in fact, maybe I will punch that in. But this is a very live performance oriented kind of workaround hack thing. Now you'll also notice that I put a pitch plug, a MIDI pitch plug, before each one of these, and I mapped it back to rack 1. This enables me to change the pitch. So basically, on the pad is set up much like an MPC. I just have the notes going chromatically. Currently, you can change that, of course, by going in and changing the play note. I have the receive note is what pad I play on the push. The play note is what note it sends out. I just set it up standard C1, just like a normal 16-pad controller would be set up as chromatic. And then I used to use an MPD32 and an MPD24, and I'd play it like a synth, and it was a lot of fun. And all I did was put a pitch plug in and change what my root key was. So the bottom left that would be considered root, and then I can move up and down and play my scales and chords. Very handy if you know music theory even a little bit. If you want to throw in to the rack, you can go in and you can go into the MIDI effects and grab like a scale plugin and just drop it into the beginning and set whatever scale you want, and then that will keep you in key if that's something you want to do. That's what's really cool about this setup. It's really easy to do things like that. You can set up arpeggiators and all kinds of fun things. But basically the pitch knob enables me to change what the root key is in the bottom left corner, and it just transposes everything up and down for me. It's kind of handy. So then basically you go to the next chain and do the same thing. Go in there, set it to the loopback channel 2. You have to do this a bunch of times. It's intensely boring, but for anyone old enough to remember working with MIDI, yeah, this is nothing. This is easy stuff. And then when you're all done, the next thing we're going to have to do is go into the track. The MIDI from needs to be your loopback, and then the drop-down menu set to each corresponding channel to the corresponding track. And then when you're done, you'll have your 8 racks, sending MIDI out and back through to your 8 tracks. And I've already have it set up, so you got to make sure you select the master MIDI track on the push, and then push layout until you get to the 64 pad mode. And you'll see the 4 different colors that I already have set up, and then you'll have bass, drums, synths, different things. I used stuff that comes with Live Suite. Everyone should have it if they downloaded all their stuff and they have Live Suite. If something isn't working, just go into each one of these tracks and just replace it with whatever you want. And then you can just move the slider up and down to select the different areas that you want to work with. And just have some fun. But that's pretty much it. Feel free to hit me up with any questions. And again, the main thing, this is kind of an advanced live performance trick. And if you go through the process and you don't actually use it, don't feel like you wasted your time, because learning how to do the MIDI loopback can be a valuable asset when you're setting up a live performance, because it does enable little workaround tricks beyond just setting up this rack. And thank you for watching. Check out my other videos. I'm the Austin Ableton Tutor. I teach one-on-one lessons. I help set up live performance rigs for professional musicians, as well as start from basic beginner musicians and music producers all the way to advanced in whatever level, DJing, video, all of that stuff. Hit me up.